Score. Welcome into the Extra Innings Show. Here, let's get our programming stuff figured out for you right away, just so you know what's going to be coming up, because we don't want you to go anywhere. We will take you for the next 10 minutes or so here on the Extra Innings Show. And if you want to chime in on that, you can do so by calling or texting 314-436-7900, 314-436-7900. We'll stop for the 5 o'clock news. Michael Calhoun will have you for that. And then after that, Kevin Wheeler will get in here, and we'll start with the Redbird rush hour during the 5 o'clock hour. And then starting at 6 o'clock, we've got Sports Open Line. We have a jam-packed Sports Open Line coming up tonight. Here are the list of guests that we are going to have on Sports Open Line this evening, just to give you an idea of what's going to be going down. Tony La Russa is going to join us at about 6:20. Then we're going to talk soccer with Warren Barden. Former Blue Barrett Jackman is going to be with us. NASCAR great Kyle Larson is going to be with us, and Illini offensive lineman Brandon Henderson. So we've got a lot. And Wayne Randazzo, who's going to be on the call on Apple TV of the Cardinals in Cleveland tomorrow, is going to join us as well. So we're going to have a jam-packed Sports Open Line this evening. And yeah, there you go. Text message coming in. So if you want to get in here, 314-436-7900, 314-436-7900. That is the best way to get in contact with the program. Off the bat, we're getting a message asking about Lars Nootbaar and where he was today. So when the lineup was first posted today, there was a lot of criticism of the lineup, in part because Lars Nootbaar was not in there. Well, Nootbaar evidently had a pain-relieving shot in his intercostal, and that's according to Oliver Marmol. He had that pain-relieving shot. That requires 48 hours of total inactivity. So he was not available for yesterday's game, and he was not available for today's game either. According to Oliver Marmol, and this is through Jeff Jones's reporting that he put out on his social media, Cardinals believe that they were able to get ahead of any potential side injury, and they do expect him to play in Cleveland coming up tomorrow. So there you go. That's your answer on Nootbaar. And this is a good chance just to take a step back and to remind yourself, myself, all of us, a lot of times when we see stuff that maybe on the surface level doesn't make a whole lot of sense, that more often than not, there's a really good reason behind it, and we don't know. We talked about this the other day when Mason Wynn did not run real hard from home to first on a ground ball to second, and then that ground ball was bobbled, and he ended up being out. The social media world exploded in that moment. Look at Wynn. He's not running. We got text messages about it. And that night, I didn't know anything about Wynn and any injury or anything like that. But that night, what I said was, you know what? Just in situations like that, especially for guys who have a good track record of playing hard, it's good to give the benefit of the doubt. And turns out that Wynn was battling something, and he was basically being given the instructions not to run hard. Because what would you rather? That, like, specifically to that play with Wynn, that's a ground ball that is fielded and thrown over to first 999 times out of 1,000. That is a mistake, a bobble that never happens, essentially. It happened in that moment, and that's what drew attention. But what would you rather? Mason Wynn busting it out of the box every single time for a 1 in 1,000 chance of a bobble, or him taking it a little easy and making sure that he stays healthy and stays on the field? Like, the answer is obvious. So, when Lars Nootbaar isn't in the lineup and you see Garrett Hampson in there, and some people were upset too about Victor Scott II not being in there. Victor Scott he's really struggling right now, and I think they're going to kind of pick and choose some spots. When it comes to him, they really like Garrett Hampson. They really like him. He's somebody that they were interested in during the offseason. It ended up not happening for him. But then once he's let go by Cincinnati, the Cardinals jumped on the opportunity to bring him in. So that's that's where they're at with this thing. And obviously, they still think very highly of Victor Scott II. He's somebody that they want to give every opportunity in the world to be able to go out there and have success. Just being able to go out there and give him an opportunity to have a day here, day there isn't the worst thing in the world. Let's get some messages that have started to come in. From the 573 says tough loss, just can't get anything going against the lefties. Also, why couldn't the Cardinals score against the Cubs pin? That was inexcusable. On to Cleveland to right the ship. I do think Cardinals haven't been terrible in terms of wins and losses against left-handed starters. They haven't been great, but it's not this just horrible, terrible number. But I do think as we watch this, Cardinals against right-handed starters are 30-23. With today's loss, they drop under 500. They're now 14-15 against left-handed starters. 14-15 is not a number to be like overly concerned about. But I do think at the same time, it's worth noting what's going on. The fact that they look so good against the right-handed starters on the first two games of the series, and then those final two games against the left-hand starters, they just weren't able to find much success. They do have to find a pathway to having success against lefties. And how long have we been talking about this? This is not a new issue for this team. It is something that has existed, and that they're going to have to figure out at some point, because you do have to find a way to beat left-handed starters if you want to be a really good team that can go and have some level of success in the postseason. Let's get to some of the messages that have come in on the video stream. Joseph says, hey, 2 wins without Herrera and Walker. Not bad against this team. I would say especially the Herrera thing. Ivan Herrera is a legitimate middle-of-the-order run-producing bat for this team. Being able to go out and score like they did in the first 2 games without him, that's good. In terms of Walker, I don't think the Cardinals' best lineup right now includes him. What we have seen from Alec Burleson and Nolan Gorman, I don't think that this is a situation right now where the Cardinals are going to put their best lineup on the field and have Jordan Walker in it. And it creates now a situation where, yes, the Cardinals want to continue to give young players opportunities, but you also don't want to give players opportunities when other players who are also relatively young have earned them more. Like, I think there's not a good example here because they don't have it on the team. But this is not a situation where Jordan Walker is going to sit more often and you're going to give more playing time to a veteran that doesn't have a long-term future. Like, if there was a scenario, I don't think this is going to happen, but like Garrett Hampson would be the best possible example on this roster. If all of a sudden you're sitting Jordan Walker, but you're playing Garrett Hampson every single day, then at that point, I think you pump the brakes a little bit, because it's like, well, why are you giving this other guy, a guy who's an older guy, a guy who doesn't really have a future in the organization, why is he getting this opportunity in a year where you've talked about transitions and runways and all that sort of stuff? Whereas if Jordan Walker sits and you give Nolan Gorman more playing time, if Jordan Walker sits and you give Alec Burleson more playing time, those are young guys. Those are guys that are cost controlled. Those are guys that you have club control over for a good number of years. And those are individuals that you would indeed want to give that runway to. So I'm not, if Jordan Walker doesn't play very much, but Burleson and Gorman do, I don't think that's an example of the Cardinals going back on their word in terms of trying to give young players an opportunity. I think what that is just them changing the priority of which young players are going to be given the priority, and it's being based upon what those guys are doing in terms of their production this year. We'll continue this and many other conversations when we have the Redbird Rush Hour. That is going to begin after the 5 o'clock news. Do want to remind you about what's on deck. It is presented by Chesterfield as Fence and Deck. The sign you have the very best. Cardinals Guardians coming up tomorrow night. Cardinals will have Sonny Gray on the mound, 7-2, 3.72 ERA. Luis Ortiz will go for the Guardians, 4-8, 4.30 ERA. We'll be on the air in 24 hours and 15 minutes because the game broadcast begins at 5:15 tomorrow. Redbird Rush Hour next here on KMOX.
Well, as you know, the ball game's out and traffic's very busy around the area, so just be prepared. If you're going westbound on 64, you've got a backup from Grand. It's solid all the way to Clayton Skinker. There's slow stuff from McKnight all the way to 270, both directions through the Chesterfield Parkways, but the westbound side slows to the Boone Bridge. And again, 364 to 70. They just cleared a crash on 70 in St. Charles County. You've got delays both ways downtown between the bridges on 44 out onto 70 past Madison from about Broadway out through Jennings Station. It's heavy. 270 to Blanchett, a little busy. Backed up 79 to K, and then slow west of there all the way to 61. Southbound 270 Page all the way down through Doherty Ferry, and then Gravois down through, or 44 down to Gravois slow. Southbound 55 Arsenal debates backed up north of Z down through McNutt, and eastbound 44 across the Poplar, 64 over to the 70 split, and 70 east to the Mutual Veterans Bridge heavy, and then 55-70 jams 111 to 255, 64 255 to 157, northbound 255 from 157 all the way up to 270 because of the detour from the closure on 55-70, and eastbound 270 Route 3 to 111, and from 255 past 157 is backed up. I'm Roger Brand at the michaelsflooringoutlet.com Traffic Center.
At 5:01, we've got a sunny sky. Right now, it's 93 degrees downtown at the Arch. This news update is sponsored by the St. Louis Aquarium at Union Station. After KMOX's report, Commissioner Don Brown sells millions in vehicles to the department he's set to oversee. Chief Robert Tracy weighs in.
He has been a vendor that has been servicing not just our police department, but a lot of police departments in the region.
Chief Tracy is defending Commissioner Brown's appointment to the Board of Police Commissioners despite the deep and long-running financial ties the department has to his dealership, Don Brown Chevrolet. Tracy is confident he won't use his new position overseeing the department improperly.
We've put some safeguards in that have been put out as a statement today.
In that amended statement from Commissioner Brown, he committed to recusing himself from any discussions around vehicle procurement. Sean Malone, KMOX News.
Unlike in the case with Kim Gardner, Attorney General Andrew Bailey's filing is seeking to remove St. Louis Sheriff Alfred Montgomery immediately pending adjudication. KMOX legal analyst Brad Young says if that were to happen, Montgomery would essentially be on paid leave until the litigation is concluded. Who would serve as interim sheriff in the meantime? Young says normally the coroner, but since the city doesn't have one.
So in this instance, in Andrew Bailey's petition quo warranto, he's asking for a member of the St. Louis Police Department to be placed in the position of the coroner, or of the sheriff rather, until the governor could appoint a replacement.
No hearing date has been set yet, with the St. Louis City Circuit Court judges recusing themselves. A special judge will have to be appointed. J.B. Pritzker had a rally this morning in Chicago to announce he's running for a third term as governor of Illinois.
I ran for governor in 2018 to change our story. I ran for governor in 2022 to keep telling our story. And I am running for governor in 2026 to protect our story.
Pritzker sidestepped questions from reporters after his speech on whether he's thinking about running for president in 2028. His only response was, "I'm running for governor today." It's another urgent call for help from St. Louis County Animal Services. The county was already asking for help with fosters and adoptions. Now, officers responding to a cruelty case yesterday brought back 40 more animals, including 2 pregnant female dogs, which safely gave birth. The shelter is now at 210 dogs, which is at capacity. The county especially needs help fostering dogs that are over 30 pounds. Illinois drivers might be surprised to learn Illinois 255 is back open again. The project to rehab a stretch of the road from 157 to 15 was completed a month and a half early.
There was an incentive-disincentive clause in the contract, but more importantly, the weather this spring, I know it seemed like we had some wet weather, but however, it did not impact the contractor.
Joe Cumby, project implementation engineer for the Illinois Department of Transportation, tells KMOX, even with the incentives given to the contractor, the agency saved $10 million on the cost of the project by closing the interstate completely. The KMOX business desk, there's a new blueprint for how to help St. Louis households gain wealth. The nonprofit WePower says at least a fifth of St. Louis households have no assets, with some owing more than they own. Charlie Cooksey, CEO of WePower, tells KMOX one idea is worker ownership of businesses. Cooksey says we're facing a silver tsunami of business owners retiring, and their own kids often don't want to take over.
We have the potential of all these really profitable and high growth businesses either shutting down or being sold to owners that may not be committed to St. Louis.
Cooksey says community land trusts could also help residents gain more say in neighborhood development. And it's time for the Wall Street Wrap, sponsored by Stifel and Ophthalmology Associates. I'm with Stifel Director of Investments, Eric Roberts. So Thursday, how'd we do?
Well, stocks rallied today. The S&P 500 advanced 0.8%, closing at 6,141. The Dow added 404 points, or 0.9%, closing at 43,386. And the Nasdaq gained 1%, closing at 20,167.
The tariff deadline is looming. Will they last beyond that?
Well, stocks rallied to session highs after White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that upcoming July 8th deadline for reciprocal tariffs is not critical. Leavitt noted the deadline could be extended, but deferred to President Trump on whether that will happen. Under the current agreement, the European Union will revert back to 50% tariffs on July 9th unless an extension is granted.
That is Stifel, Director of Investments, Eric Robert. Thank you. That's the Wall Street Wrap on KMOX.
It's another summertime evening, partly cloudy skies, a slow drop out of the 90s into the upper 80s this evening, and only 77 for the low. Friday, partly sunny, hot and humid, a little bit of an uptick in isolated to scattered thunderstorms. Focus on the afternoon. Much of the day is going to be rain-free. We just have to kind of watch the sky. 94 for the high. These are heat-driven thunderstorms, pulse-type storms. Friday night, partly to mostly cloudy, a couple of thunderstorms, 75. Keep that going right through the weekend. I'm meteorologist Dave Murray on 104.1 FM. KMOX.
Right now downtown, we've got sunshine. It's 93. The feels like is 96. I'm Michael Calhoun, KMOX News.
Well, this traffic reports a service of Jerry Kelly Heating, Air Conditioning, and Electrical. We're still working this crash on eastbound 64 if you're on heading in to town. That's how I was talking about the jam earlier through the Chesterfield Parkways. Eastbound 64 is jammed. Boone's Crossing to Chesterfield Parkway East. The right lane still blocked there. That's the most recent crash we've had. Ball game traffic, of course, a solid jam on westbound 64 from Grand all the way out through Clayton Skinker, slow to Big Bend, slow from 170 all the way to 270. Again, Clarkson all the way to the Boone Bridge, and 364 all the way out to Highway 70. Westbound 70, heavy pockets from about Adelaide all the way past almost to Lucas Hunt. 79, it's sort of slow all the way out through Highway Z. 364 is busier than normal from just west of 94 Mugi all the way out through Mid Rivers. It's bogged down. Southbound 270, a backup south of Page to Olive, and then it just remains heavy all the way down to Doherty Ferry. Northbound Manchester, Ladue is slow. South 170 bogs down at Ladue. Westbound 44 from 55 out to Kings Highway is slow. Southbound 55 Arsenal to Bates backed up. North of Z to McNutt is slow. Eastbound and westbound 44 backed up through the bridges downtown. Eastbound 64 is jammed across the bridge over to 3rd Street. 70 slow east of the Musial Veterans. And 5570 east of 111 to 255 is backed up. Northbound 255 is jammed. Well south of 162, you're backed up for about a mile south of there, all the way up to 270 and 270 eastbound, all the way past 157, as that alternate route is really congested. Next update at 5:20 from the michaelsflooringoutlet.com traffic center.
All right, welcome into the Redbird Rush Hour. Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here on a Thursday, wrapping up this 4-game series. We got a lot to do, and we've got time. We actually have a full show, which we haven't had yet this week, and we won't have any almost next week, right? Everything's in East Coast start time next week, so it's going to be a little bit quieter on this end, but tonight we got time. So if you want to throw in your 2 cents, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, feel free to do it. You can text 314-436-7900. Matt Pauley here in the studio, Kevin Wheeler in my studio. I got my little studio going on here, which is really just my office in the man cave.
Matthew Rocchio, by the way, is here running our show, and he wanted to give you grief about your wolf over your left
What's
shoulder.
wrong with a wolf? I am the master of wolves. Go check out my profile on Twitter, man.
I also had in my dorm room in college.
You put animals on your dorm room and not ladies?
No, I didn't. But it's a 16-year-old. It's a good. Listen here. It's a good wolf. I'm saying that it is a very good wolf.
That's a badass wolf right there, is what it is.
Fair enough.
And I am the master of wolves, which is why it's there. You guys gotta. it's DGS lore. You gotta, yeah,
Hmm.
it's DGS lore. So you gotta check that out. But again, go look at the Twitter profile and see the picture there of me as the Master of Fools. It's pretty sweet, Matt. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have. Oh, I've seen it many times.
I can't just say Matt because I'm saying that to two Matts.
That's true. He's Matthew. I'm Matt. We can go with there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you never know in shorthand. All right. So I just put this on Twitter, and I'm again. This is not really, I don't think, very controversial. Outcome of the series is fine. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's fine, right? If you were told before the series they're going to split it, you'd be like, all right, yeah, of course, that'd be totally fine. But it always feels a little bit worse when you win the first two and lose the first two. But it doesn't change the reality of splitting 2 out of 4 against the team you're chasing is not the end of the world. But you still got work to do.
Yeah. Look, if we would have gone into the series and said, are you going to be at least comfortable if they split the 4-game series with the Cubs? Most people would say yes. To your point, the worst feeling split of a 4-game series is when you win the first 2 and then you can't find one more win to take 3 out of 4. And that was the situation they were in. Them winning the first 2 is huge. I always thought yesterday was going to be tough against Boyd. I just didn't think that was a very good matchup. Not taking anything away from Imanaga, but coming off the injured list and everything, I thought that was a bit of an unknown. So I thought the best path to the Cardinals winning 3 out of 4 was winning 1, 2, and 4. And unfortunately today, they weren't able to come up with that one more big hit that they needed. Gorman almost hit one. That would have been a huge moment for this team today, but unfortunately it just didn't happen.
No. And look, there was a bunch. I had a couple things back and forth on Twitter about, the fact that they're struggling with lefties, but they're not struggling with any lefties. These two guys, Imanaga and Boyd, are pitching great. Imanaga has been on the injured list, but he's not done anything but get people out since arriving in the major leagues. And Matthew Boyd's been excellent this year. And then Abbott's got a 1.76 ERA and 13 starts. Like, let's not sweat it too much.
Right.
If you're getting beat by, some sloppy 5th starter lefty, that's a little bit different vibe. But if you look at their most recent losses, it's those 3 lefties I just listed. It's Mizorowski, who's taken Major League Baseball by storm with the Brewers. It's Freddie Peralta, who's probably an all-star this year. Quinn Priester in there, but he's been good since going to Milwaukee too. But he's not at the level of the people that we're talking about. But the point is, yeah, good pitching beats you. And that's what this team has to get past. This is part of what we talked about yesterday in needing star players, because who beats good pitching? Top end hitters,
right? Which, and that's where them not having Ivan Herrera really hurts. This is where his absence is really felt. And, some of the messages that are coming in the chat are mentioning other people that they were without. And I'm not trying to take a shot at a Lars Nootbaar, Victor Scott II, Jordan Walker, anybody else, but the guy they missed is Ivan Herrera. I'm not overly worried about them sitting Scott a couple days in a row. I'm not overly worried about Nootbaar being a bit banged up and not being able to play for 2 days. I'm not worried about those things. I am worried about how this team consistently produces runs minus Ivan Herrera.
Yeah, and look, I think we could. The overall offense, like we talked about yesterday, has been fine, right? On the season, you've scored a lot of runs. You're top 6 or 7 in Major League Baseball after today, and that's even after being shut out the last 2 days. You're still, top 7 or 8 offense in runs scored. But as we've seen, it's almost like hit or miss, right? It's a lot of really 8, 9 runs or 1, 2, 3 runs or none. It's been kind of up and down. And if they can find a level, that's fine. But again, like, they're still fine. Like, it's not, don't get me wrong. We're not talking about a team that we want it to be. Everybody that watches and covers this team wants it to be the World Series contender that it consistently was for a long time. It is not that, but it's also not a disaster when you're 5 or 6 games over 500. And right now, 6 games over 500 after splitting this series. And I think it does emphasize, though, Matt, that you're getting to the time of year. We're past the halfway point now. We're getting towards July. As you go, there is increased urgency, both beating good teams, but also taking care of business against struggling teams. And now that's what you face next. Cleveland has scored 66 runs this month.
Mm-hmm.
They are the worst offense in baseball this month. You need to win that series. I don't care if it's on the road. And you're not getting their best starter. Tanner Bybee pitched today. So you're not getting their best starter, and they're not hitting. Again, I'm saying this not mathematically you have to do it, but practically speaking, this is where if you're going to be a playoff team, you got to start beating that team. And then you got to take 2 or 3 from Pittsburgh too.
Yeah, you don't want to be the team that teams get right against. And sometimes that's been the Cardinals. You don't want the Guardians to go get right against St. Louis over the next few days. And I do think you look at the pitchers that Cleveland's going to be throwing. Luis Ortiz has an ERA inching towards 4.5. Slade Ciccone a really unproven guy. The overall numbers are fine. He's got a 3.38 ERA. And then you do have that test at the end of the series where you're going to face off against a lefty in Logan Allen, who's a little bit streaky himself, but he's got a 4.2
Yeah, he's
right now.
beatable, though.
Very beatable. Yes. So going back to the Imanaga Boyd conversation where you're accepting of a lefty who's really good getting you, well, you're accepting of that when you're able to go have some success against the Logan Allens of the world.
Yeah, see, that's exactly right. So if you get, again, nothing against Logan Allen, he's a major league player. I mean, like it's like we're not dogging on this guy, but he's not been the most consistent performer. He's got an ERA. I think, what is he now for the season? Like
4.25,
4.5, 4.25, right?
Yeah.
And he's a 4.55 for his career. So he's not a guy that you should get shut down by. He is a guy that does swing. He does get a little bit of swing and miss, but not that much. He's a pitch to contact guy. So again, if that lefty's shutting you down, not just beating you, right? If you lose that game 5-4, that's not just because it's a lefty. But if that lefty shuts you down, okay, we have a worry. When really top end guys shut you down, that's what happens. And as we had a note here earlier, we've had the team. This is a team that has also beaten some really good pitchers too. In a long season, though, more often than not, the good ones are going to get you. It's just that's why they're good, and that's what your good guys are supposed to do, right? That's what we expect from Sonny Gray when he pitches. That's what the expectation has been with Matthew Liberatore outside of a couple of starts. And the good guys typically are better than you most of the time. Now we'll talk more about what's going on in the upcoming series. We obviously want to get your comments if you want to throw them at us. Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter is great. Text line is fine too. 314-436-7900. Long way to go. A lot to cover. It's Matt Pauley and Kevin Wheeler with you here on the Redbird Rush Hour on KMOX.
Well, everything's heavier when you mix in ball game traffic this afternoon on the drive home. This traffic report's a service of the Penn Mutual Life Insurance Company. Westbound 70, you've got delays from the Mutual Veterans Bridge to the McKinley, from West Florissant all the way through Jennings Station. From west of Mid Rivers, really all the way out through Highway Z. It's just slow as you go all the way through. Northbound 170 jams the Rock Road up through 70 because of the road work in the left lane. South 170 bogs down around Delmar. Westbound 64 again, Grand out to Clayton Skinker's a solid jam, but it's slow to Big Bend. It's slow again from McKnight all the way to 270, both directions. Through the Chesterfield Parkways, all the way to about Boone's Crossing, both ways are jammed. Eastbound, that crash is still out there in the right lane east of Chesterfield Parkway East. The westbound side remains heavy to the Boone Bridge and again backs up 364 to 70. 364 west of Heritage Crossing out through Mid Rivers is heavy. South 270 backs up south of Page to Ladue, both directions between a point south of Manchester and Ladue are heavy. Westbound 44 from 55 through Kings Highway from west of Big Bend to 270. That's all busy. Southbound 55 Arsenal to Bates, stop and go pockets, and heavy traffic south of Bayless Union Road down to Rivas. Crash blocking the right lane there, and then north of Z to McNutt. 44 both ways between the bridges. 64 across the Poplar over to 70. 70 from the Mutual Veterans Bridge on to 64. And 55 70s 111 to 255 all the way to 157 really where it's closed. Northbound 255 midway between Horseshoe Lake Road and 162 is jammed up to 270. And eastbound 270 delays through 203, and then it's backed up from 255 through 157. Are you considering life insurance? Penn Mutual's accelerated client experience makes applying for life insurance fast and easy. Ask your independent advisor or go to pennmutual.com/STL. I'm Roger Brand in the Michael's Flooring Outlet.com Traffic Center.
Back in on the Redbird Rush Hour. Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here till the top of the hour. And then, Matt, you got more.
I do. And so, Kevin, you know, I'm of the you and I are very like-minded. Maybe you're a little bit more like lack of guests on Sports Open Line. I like 2 or 3 guests on the show and, you know, 5-6 segments of me talking. It's going to be the opposite of that today.
Oh,
we had a who's who of folks roll through Busch Stadium this past week, and I recorded a bunch of interviews, not even able to get them all on tonight. But of note, Tony La Russa is going to be on with us tonight. Kyle Larson, the NASCAR driver, one of the top NASCAR drivers out there. Barrett Jackman, the former Blue, is going to be with us. Brandon Henderson, an Illinois offensive lineman who played at East St. Louis High School, is going to be with us. Wayne Randazzo, who's going to have the call of the Cardinals game tomorrow night on Apple TV. We're going to talk with an Apple guest. So it's crazy what we have today on the show.
Barrett Jackson's one of my favorites.
He was awesome. I've never met him before until I talked to him earlier this week.
Best guys I ever covered. In fact, last year, I won't get into too much detail because it's boring. But he was part of one of the coaching staff on his son's 14U team, and we saw each other on the field a couple of times. Good dude, man. Really good
dude. Yeah.
Yeah. Looking forward to hearing that one on Sports Open Line tonight. All right, let's talk a bit about the end of the game stuff, because I know I said before the series that I wanted this rivalry to heat up a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe it did a little.
I think so.
Maybe.
You know, Wilson Contreras has a little bit of a hot streak to himself. So, you know, he's a former Cub. He's made it very clear that he's glad to be a Cardinal, not a Cub. So I'm sure all of that goes into it.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with all of it. It's fine because look, they play again in a week. We want these teams to hate each other.
Yes,
we want you know, like the fan base to be able to draw into that. And it's not staged either, man. That was genuine frustration. I will say, I know I texted this to you. And by the way, this is not in any way a hot take, but this is why I've always said to the old school baseball people, these are the reasons why you can't leave it to the players to police what's happening, because the standards are constantly shifting, right? Like, remember the Brewers were really mad at Wilson Contreras for an accidental misstep at first base that led to a collision. And you could see the conversation between Contreras and Rhys Hoskins when Hoskins was on base as a base runner. And you could see Hoskins say, it doesn't matter if it was an accident. And now today, what was clearly an accident, there's no way Palencia was trying to hit anybody because he's putting the tying run at the plate in the 9th inning of a 3-run game where you can win the series. But then Contreras doesn't like the accident this time, but when it was his accident, that was all good. And again, I understand it. It's about the heat of the moment. My only point is, this is why Major League Baseball needs to handle discipline and not the players.
I'll also say this about Wilson, and this is like, I'm trying to think of how I want to say this, because it's almost going to come out derogatory towards him, where it's not that at all. He's always done this. He's always gotten hit a million times, and
Yeah,
he's
just
always
13th or 14th this year.
yeah, and it going back years and years, and he's always taken issue with getting hit. And I don't know if that's just something that he does himself mentally to try to keep him locked in or fired up, but he is somebody who seemingly tries to get hit and then gets upset about being hit. And that has been Wilson Contreras since his first day in Major League Baseball.
And I don't mind it at all.
Neither do I.
I do. I just want to be clear. It's not a criticism of him because I like the fire. I just think it's funny though. Like, this is how, when you're in the heat of the moment, this is how the mind goes. You're not thinking logically. You're not thinking, well, my play was an accident and they got pissed at me. Maybe I shouldn't get pissed. And that's not part of it. But again, which is only reason why I say this. This is why beanball wars are not allowed anymore.
Right.
This is why this stuff is policed stronger by Major League Baseball than it used to be, because with these shifting standards, nobody's ever wrong. Because it is, I get it. 100 miles an hour near your face is not okay.
No.
It is not okay. And in the old days, even missing up there, hell, I can't even count. You talked to Tony La Russa today. I can't even count the number of times I heard him say, I don't care if it's on purpose or not. You can't throw up near the head, period, the end. And if you do, we're going to have a problem. Like, I get it completely, totally understand. But again, this is why we have to have like the cooler heads in New York decide discipline and not let the players decide who did what and why and how, because everybody's standard is different.
It's the only part of the 3-batter rule I don't like, because if there's a guy out there that just cannot control pitches, I think there should be some sort of mechanism where, for safety purposes, a team can be allowed to take a guy out.
Yes. And I would say that would be a great addition to I'm fine with the change anyway. You just maybe you limit the number of changes within an inning in a game. Maybe it's 1 or 2 instead of, only 3-batter minimum for that reason you're talking about. And again, I'd rather have Wilson Contreras on this team than not. He's my favorite player. I love the energy. I think the team needs that little edge, that little sandpaper. They've always, when they're good, they've always had it. Yachty had it. Albert had it. Chris Carpenter had it. Whenever they're good, they have that edge, that edgy guy or 3 or 4. So I think it's a big thing. And I think every team that's good has that guy and needs those kind of guys. It's just, we get a bigger picture thing why players shouldn't be the ones that get to police these things, or managers, players, managers, whatever. It should be Major League Baseball for these reasons, because things can get interpreted in the way that's most convenient for you when you're in the heat of the moment. All right, Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here, Redbird Rush Hour. We got the full half hour coming up, so we got to take you all the way up until 6 o'clock in Sports Open Line. Feel free to throw us more of your comments and questions. We'll be getting to those coming up after the news on KMOX.
At 5:31, the news is sponsored by Michael's Flooring Outlet, the flooring experts, michaelsflooringoutlet.com, sunshine and 92 downtown at the Arch. FEMA has provided $17 million of aid to about 300,000 households in the city so far, but there are many out there who still need to apply. According to Mayor Kara Spencer, she says residents can stop by any of 3 new disaster recovery centers set up in North City.
It is important that people can be able to walk right up. They're within community and trusted spaces like St. Louis Public Schools, so folks are feeling compelled to engage in that process.
The 3 new locations are the Urban League on Natural Bridge, the Union Tabernacle Church on Newstead, and Sumner High School on Cottage Avenue. Injuries and fires caused by fireworks, always a concern of the city fire department this time of year. But this year, there's an added concern, those homes that were damaged by the tornado. Fire Chief Dennis Jankerson.
A lot of those homes up there have tarps on them. They're unprotected, they're open, and they're very susceptible to any type of fireworks.
Jankerson says they're also concerned about the debris piles, both locally and the large collection sites. He adds they have been wetting those sites twice a day during the heat wave to make them less flammable. One of St. Louis's steel truss bridges over the Mississippi River is getting some work done.
Well, they're going to be closing the McKinley Bridge for the weekend starting tomorrow night at 9 p.m. through Monday morning at 5 a.m. for bridge deck sealing. So if you're on the Illinois side, you can take Route 3 north up to 270, or you can take Route 3 south down through Venice and Brooklyn to access the Mutual Veterans or Poplar Street bridges. And, of course, those same bridge alternates are the ones you should use if you're on the Missouri side. Roger Brand, KMOX News.
Travelers, take note. Metrolink trains won't be running between the Lambert Airport and North Hanley stations on Sunday. You'll need to plan extra time to get on the shuttle buses, which will fill the gap. Metro says it's because of construction work that is happening on that stretch of track. Partly cloudy tonight, warm and humid, low 77. For tomorrow, hot times, humid, a few mid to late day thunderstorms even, with the high of 95. 75 tomorrow night, Saturday and Sunday, some more scattered thunderstorms and highs of 95 both days. Right now, downtown at the Arch, we've got sunshine. It's 93. The feels like is 95. I'm Michael Calhoun, KMOX News.
All right, picking it back up on the Redbird Rush Hour. Matt Pauley and Kevin Wheeler with you here. Obviously, we've got a whole lot of time left. And actually, I don't know. It seems like a whole lot of time. It's not really. We run out very fast every time. But feel free to try to get in if you'd like to do that. Right now, it's time for the Game Day Men's Performance Peak Performer. Get back to the top of your game with Game Day Men's Health. Just go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Kind of hard the last couple of days to really fixate on anything to pick on that we haven't really talked about recently, Matt. So I want to go back to Riley O'Brien for a minute. He hasn't moved into a leverage role. He hasn't changed the team's bullpen mix in that regard. But the role that he's in right now is pretty valuable. He's the guy that can come in up a lot, or down a little bit and kind of hold things where they are. And while it's not exactly where you'd like it to be, you'd love to see a few more strikeouts here and there. He's been all right. I mean, he's made 12 appearances, a 2.40 ERA. He obviously tends to keep the ball on the ground. His command is still spotty, which is probably why he has a harder time getting strikeouts, because sometimes he just has to throw to the middle of the zone. But he's becoming a really useful piece, and it's not to the point now where we're like, oh, this is a leverage guy. It's not that, but he's definitely got a role. Yeah, I like what we've seen from him, especially at a time where we've seen some of the guys who have been really consistent this year maybe not be quite, Kyle Leahy hasn't quite been lately what he has been most of the season. There's some other guys in that category as well. This is a great chance for somebody like Riley O'Brien to go have some success and put him in position where if there is a need, they feel more comfortable putting him in one of those spots. Yeah, and again, at this point, it's just more of a look, every team needs players that fit in the middle like that, where it's a game that could swing either direction. I mean, he can be the guy where you're down big and he can just eat an inning or two. But he's throwing better than that. He's giving you that chance to be that middle guy, and that can take some of the load off of other people. Yeah, which is the point. And there's a reason, by the way, that he's not the guy that's riding the up and down shuttle. No, there's different ranks of bullpen arms, and one of the ranks is non-high leverage guy that has a full-time job on the big league roster, and that's a much better spot to be in than the Matt Svensons and the Chris Roycrofts and the Andre Granillos, who are the up and down guys. Absolutely. All right, so and by the way, we had a question about where is Granillo, or is he hurt? Right here from Joseph. No, Joseph, he's not hurt. He's in Memphis. He got part of the. Didn't he get hurt last night though? Or is there an update on that? Yeah, I didn't see that he did. Yeah, he came out of the game with an arm issue last night. I've not seen an update beyond that. Well, then maybe he did. Not great. That's not why he wasn't here though. He wasn't here as a part of the refreshing of the bullpen. He threw a little bit. They needed a fresh arm. They put him down. So those two things aren't linked. But certainly, because I don't think he's gone because of performance. His performance was fine. It's just a matter of they wanted to get a fresh arm up. All right, Matt Pauley, Kevin Wheeler with you here. We're going to get right back to it. In fact, we got some good questions on the chat that we're going to get to from via Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So stick around. We're going to get some more of those. And if you want to add to them, go ahead. And we're going to do that right after a quick hit of traffic with Captain Roger Brand.
Traffic from the MichaelsForeignOutlet.com.
Well, this traffic report's a service of Metro Transit. We still have backed up traffic around the area. Westbound Highway 70, you've got slow stuff from running from about O'Fallon Park, headed out through Jennings Station, and then you're heavy again running out in the 270 area to the Blanchette Bridge. You've got more slow traffic from right around the Lake St. Louis area, and that runs all the way out through 61. Westbound 64 is backed up Boyle, headed out through the Clayton-Skinker area. It's slow to Big Bend. It's slow Clayton-Worcester to 270. Still backed up each ways around Clarkson. Westbound, though, jam through there, and then heavy all the way to the Boone Bridge. And again, Winghaven out to 70. 364 Youngerman to Mid-Rivers is slow. South 270 backs up south of Page down through Ladue, but remains heavy down past 64. Northbound Manchester up to Ladue is busy. Northbound 170, the Rock Road to 70 is heavy. South 170, an incident south of Olives. There's a short jam there. Southbound 55, Gasconade Bates is slow. Westbound 44 backed up through the bridges downtown. 64 east of the Poplar is still heavy. 5570, a backup approaching 111, and then east of there to 255, and northbound 255 still jammed midway between Horseshoe Lake and 162 up onto eastbound 270, which in turn is backed up headed through 157. So it's still really tough headed in those directions. I'm Roger Brand in the MichaelsFlooringOutlet.com Traffic Center.
All right, thank you, Roger. And obviously, we'll have another traffic report before we wrap things up for the hour. Matt, let's get to a couple of these questions, a couple of topics that are coming up here. Sam throws it up there. I'm going to throw it on the screen for those watching on the stream. If you're not watching, his question is, why couldn't we get any runs against their bullpen? That is so inexcusable. I'm not so sure it's inexcusable. It's like the 4th or 5th best bullpen in baseball so far this year. They may not be names, right? They may not be the biggest names, but I mean, if you go look at bullpen ERA, they're number 6 now. Now that I looked it up, they're number 6 in baseball this year. So
okay, let's get individual.
It's a pretty good bullpen.
Here's the individual ERAs for the 4 relief pitchers that were used today: 2.03, 1.96, 0, 1.86.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Yeah, and look, like Thielbar is a kind of a career journeyman, but he's pitching well, as you point out this year. Brad Keller used to be a starter, not effective. And now you see him out there as a reliever throwing 98, 99 miles an hour. So he's a different guy than he was when he was the starter, Brad Keller. Pomeranz is, again, kind of hot or cold in his career. But Palencia has been a game changer for them ever since he moved into the 9th inning. And we saw it. He's throwing 101 miles an hour with a nasty slider and a split. I know the bullpen is not a bunch of the biggest names, but their bullpen's been good. And look, the truth is, like in the playoffs, if you're a contender, you've got to be able to beat good bullpens. But like when the Cardinals line up their bullpen with a 3-run lead, don't we expect them to succeed?
Yes, we do.
Don't we expect it to succeed when it's Maton and Leahy and Romero and obviously, Helsley when he's more right than he's been here so far this season? I mean, almost everybody feels pretty good about their bullpen when they line it up the way they want to.
Yeah, and they hadn't needed their high leverage guys really throughout this series.
Until today.
Right.
Yeah.
At least their winning group of high leverage guys.
You have to be able to do that to win a World Series. But in general, over 162 games when you're facing another team's best guys. And again, it's been a good bullpen. They're not allowing runs. They've done their job. It's not the biggest swing and miss bullpen, although Palencia is a swing and miss guy. Then we got another question in here, another comment here from Walt. Says the Cardinals have issues. Odds are something's off with Gray. You don't slide his starts back for no reason. We'll get to that in a second. Left-handed hitters are vulnerable to left-handed pitching. That's true, and that's pretty much universally true in Major League Baseball, unless the lefty's name is Juan Soto. And then 0 right-handed bats in the outfield, and that includes Walker and Hampson. That's a real problem. It's a real problem. I mean, like even Ollie's talked about that. Not so much about saying that their lefties can't hit lefties. And again, Burleson's been better against lefties this year than he's been in the past. Newt and Donovan don't typically struggle with lefties.
No.
But by the way, neither does Gorman. He's okay against lefties. He's not
historic,
great,
like for
he's
his career, yes.
Career-wide, right. Last year, he was brutal against lefties.
Right.
This year, I think it's kind of a mixed bag between the 2 years. But it is a fair point. And that's why Herrera is such a big deal. Herrera gives you another power right-hander to go with Contreras. Because Arenado is just not that guy anymore. He's still a quality major league hitter. He still will come up with a big hit. He still will put together a good at-bat, but he's not that guy now. And, when Herrera's not there, then they only have one of those guys from the right side because Wynn is not that kind of guy. And Wynn's not had a great month.
No.
It's been a down month.
He's banged up. He's really banged up, and I think that's impacting him.
I think they need to start finding ways to get more days off for him. I know it's hard because he's such a good defender. Because like today, none of their other shortstops make the play that he made on Tucker.
Right.
With in a bases loaded situation that kept you in the game. If that gets through, that game could get away. So I get it. I totally get it. But at some point you do worry about reaching the point of diminishing returns.
Here's the thing, though. It already feels like they have more trust in Garrett Hampson, who can play shortstop, than they've had in basically everybody else who can play shortstop other than Mason Wynn. So maybe that's the path.
He moves better than a guy like Sajacy. But see, this thing is when you play Sajacy there's some defensive, but there's a bat. Hampson's not a bat.
But they didn't trust Barrero at shortstop for sure.
No, I get it. Barrero's totally an unproven player, very talented, but unproven player. So that second part there with the vulnerable to lefties, yes, they are to the good lefties for sure. Maybe not to the average ones. And then the right-hand bat, that's correct. Don't read too much into the way they're doing this with the rotation. This is on purpose because of the workload. That doesn't mean anything's wrong with Sonny Gray.
Yeah.
In fact, they've been advertising that they were going to do this for weeks.
I do think it's a missed opportunity, though. They didn't get Sonny in against the Cubs.
No, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would say that, maybe the way to do it would have been to leave him for one of these games, and then maybe push back Palante as an example, and then give Sonny the extra day the next time through if you can do it. I understand completely what they're doing, and I get that. I mean, we have to keep in mind, like, Sonny is a high effort, mid-30s right-handed pitcher. He's not a guy, and through his career, he has never been the 200 inning workhorse. It's
Right.
not him. He hasn't hit 200 innings in a season since 2015. Like and now he had 184 his last year in Minnesota, and that's good. And he can probably do something like that, but he's also a few years older than that now. He's 35 now, and they are going to be careful with that to not burn him out, because if you do have a chance in September, you're going to need him then. And if you end up somehow in October, you're going to need him there too. So that's what it is. It doesn't mean something's wrong with him, but I agree with you, Matt. Probably an opportunity to maybe shift it around a little bit and make him ride on normal rest for now and build in the extra rest after.
Yeah, but I'll also say that I can talk out both sides of my mouth with the best of them. You start doing that in June, where you're finagling the rotation to get a guy in for a certain series. Like, it does seem a little early.
Well, he
to
would
do
have been
that
on
too.
his normal turn, though.
Yeah,
it just means one extra day for Palante.
I can argue both sides like this, and when you can argue both sides, that means there was like no clear right or wrong answer.
Yes, there may be more right, but there's no absolute right or wrong answer on this one for sure. All right, one more segment to go. Hang tight. It's Redbird Rush Hour here on KMOX.
Well, they're working a new crash now, eastbound 64, east of Boone's Crossing, left lane's blocked, so a little bit of a jam up there. Most of the volume's going westbound, though. Westbound 64, Boyle out to Clayton Skinker's jammed. It's slow to Big Bend. It's slow Spady to Ballas. And again, backed up, approaching Clarkson down past that crash scene, but it remains heavy all the way to the Boone Bridge and slow again from just west of Winghaven out to Interstate 70. Westbound 70 still backed up from Shreve. Pretty solid from Riverview out through Jennings Station. Looks like it may be trouble there. And then you have delays in St. Charles County through T.R. Hughes and west of Lake St. Louis out through 61. Northbound 170, slow north of the Rock Road up to 70. South 170, we have an incident just south of Olive. It's backed up close to Page. If you're on southbound 55, Gasconade Bates, a little slow, a little busy right around McNutt. Southbound 270, still a backup south of Page. Down through 64, and after that, it's not so bad. Heading into Illinois, we still have this backup eastbound 5570, east of 111 to 255, northbound 255, south of 162, pretty much a jam all the way up onto eastbound 270 past 157. Next update at 5:59 from the Michaels Flooring Outlet.com Traffic Center.
All right, 2 minutes left on the Redbird Rush Hour. Matt Pauley then has Sports Open Line with Tony La Russa and Barrett Jackman and a whole bunch of other people. So busy night tonight for you on Sports Open Line. So the sports continue.
Yes.
You're on your home for the Cardinals, KMOX. All right, so when we're looking at what's left, right, we're just past the halfway point. If we were to rewind to the beginning of the year and say the Cardinals are going to be 6 games over 500 at the halfway point, I probably would have taken that.
100%. Anybody who didn't, give me some of what you're on, because this is a really good spot for this team to be on compared to the expectations going into the season.
Now, that's not to say that proceeding at their current pace is going to be good enough. That's not what I'm saying.
No, they're
all.
not in a playoff spot right now.
Right. They're a game out. And even if you're in the last wild card spot, that still needs improvement too, because you got people on your heels. And you look at the National League, you're not out of the division, right? I mean, it's a 4.5 game difference, and you just showed that you can play with the Cubs head to head. And the Brewers are in that mix too. The Reds are kind of on the outside of it, but who knows? You know, the Reds are only a game and a half behind you. So you've got a division race that's real, at least for now. And then a wild card race that includes, what is it now, 7 teams within 3 games?
Yeah, and
3 spots.
I think there's 3 like big narratives for me when it comes to the wild card race. I think from a talent standpoint, the Padres are better than the Cardinals, so it's sometimes it's tough to catch teams that are better than you. Yeah, I'm not even like kind of those. I'm afraid of the Atlanta Braves, because I think they're a really good team, and I'm afraid of the run that they're going to go on.
They're not in that group that I listed.
Yeah.
And
And
they're 6.5 out right now. And one team that is in there, Arizona, at 3 games out, just lost their entire team to injury.
yeah, I'm not as worried about Arizona. San Francisco is the big one, though, because they were the team that you could identify as a team that the Cardinals were kind of right there next to. They go add Devers. If you're going to do that, that means they've got an all-in mentality. Let's see what they do as well at the deadline.
Yeah, and I think that this is going to be pretty clear, that this is going to stay this way for another month. I don't see any of this really separating significantly.
Mm-mm.
Now, maybe the Phillies do, right? The Phillies are 2.5 up on Milwaukee, and I think that therefore they're 3 up on the last wild card spot, 3.5, 4 up on the teams that are out of the playoffs.
And we can do Philadelphia/New York, because they're right next to each other in the standings. Yeah,
that's kind of my point. Like,
Right.
I think those two, the second place team of those two is probably in a different conversation. Like, Philly is where they are despite a 3-game losing streak. So they're not going to keep doing that. They're better than that. But this is still going to be a tight race for what I would say is probably 2 spots now.
Yeah, and the Mets have been terrible for about 2 weeks.
Yeah,
They've been terrible.
No, it's a good point.
Yeah.
And, but Soto's figured it out. So I would say it's probably a good bet that they will figure it out. But their pitching's not that great at the moment. You know,
They got
Senga's
Montas
out.
back.
They do, but like, what's that going to look like early on? We'll see. But Senga shouldn't be out long, but he's out right now. And I think that the point really that I'm making is that between the Brewers, Padres, Giants, Cardinals, Reds, Diamondbacks, Braves, this, depending on what it looks like in a month, it might come down to which of those teams make the best moves.
Yeah.
And who's in the most aggressive posture. And from what we've been hearing, Matt, I don't think the Cardinals are in a super aggressive posture.
I think they're willing to add if it makes sense, but they are not going to mortgage anything. And at that point, it's going to be a 2-headed decision, because anything that impacts the team beyond this year, Chaim Bloom's going to be involved with John Mozeliak on.
Yeah, and I think their willingness to pull back or to maybe step on the gas a little bit, it's probably going to have to do with how they're playing at that point. You know, if you're surging and maybe you're in the second spot or, you know, pushing for the first spot, that's a little bit better incentive than if you're trying to hang on the periphery of, you know, the third spot with like 4 other teams pushing in. All right, buddy, have fun tonight. Looking forward to the 2-hour show. You will be busy, but looking forward to that. And then we'll talk again tomorrow. I don't think we have this tomorrow. So
we have
we'll
I think we may have like 5 minutes of it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
It'll be a little quickie in advance of the East Coast game. All right. Sports Up a Line coming up next on KMOX.